Good evening. I'm Trey Gowdy. Thank you for joining us. When Merrick Garland was sitting before the Senate Judiciary Committee asking to be confirmed as the Attorney General for the United States, he made certain promises. He promised to be the lawyer for all people. He promised an office devoid of partisan politics. He promised fairness without regard to political orthodoxy. He promised to be independent and not a mere extension of the president. He promised the Department of Justice worthy of your respect. He promised to rein in the abuses of those empowered to take your liberty, your property, your reputation, and indeed your life. He promised a humility that is so often found when the powerful embrace fairness as their foundation. It sure doesn't seem that way, does it?
Gary Shapley is a supervisory special agent for the IRS, where he's worked for 14 years. In January 2020, he was assigned to what he calls a high-profile investigation.
Who's the subject of the investigation?
I can't confirm or deny the subject of this investigation.
Why not?
Because, part of the tax secrecy laws don't allow it.
Shapley can't say it, but CBS News has learned the investigation was the probe of Hunter Biden by the Trump-appointed U.S. attorney in Delaware. CBS News has obtained this letter Shapley's lawyers sent to Congress Monday, alleging irregularities in DOJ's handling of the investigation. Shapley is seeking legal protections from Congress so he can share specifics of his allegations.
There was multiple steps that were slow-walked at the direction of the Department of Justice.
Had you ever encountered that before?
I have not, no. These deviations from normal process, and each and every time it seemed to always benefit the subject.
That is a federal law enforcement agent complaining about prosecutors acting too slowly on a case involving the son of the man Merrick Garland works for, deviating from what would happen to you, and each and every deviation benefits the suspect. And what about law enforcement? Law enforcement officers have no more power than what you give them. They are not born empowered to search or seize or arrest. These powers are to be used fairly and justly and based on facts and never as retribution. Journalist Matt Taibbi was the target of some unusual IRS tactics after he uncovered government wrongdoing in the Twitter files. And here's what he told Fox's John Roberts about that experience.
I'm curious that they opened an investigation into you on Christmas Eve of last year, which happened to be a Saturday. How many folks at home think that they could ever get in touch with anybody from the IRS on Christmas Eve, particularly on a Saturday, yet they're opening an investigation into you?
Yeah, they're opening an investigation into me on a Saturday, on Christmas Eve, on the same day that I just released a report about the ties between the FBI and other enforcement agencies and tech platforms. And it was a 3-year-old case, and I didn't owe them any money. So all of those factors combined to make the optics of this really strange. You would wonder what supervisor would be calling an agent on a Saturday and asking them to come into work to open up a case on that day.
Which brings us to the FBI. The former director admitted he did something to President Trump he would not have even tried with President Obama. Former deputy director met with agents to hatch an insurance policy in case a certain Republican won the White House. The lead FBI agent in charge of investigating Republican presidential candidate said he could smell the supporters of that candidate in a Walmart. Former general counsel for the FBI wound up finding a home at Twitter, while other agents removed from the Bureau found the home on liberal cable news channels. People in charge at the Bureau have changed, but has the Bureau itself changed? The Inspector General's been critical, special counsel's been critical, and at least one candidate on the Republican side for president has promised changes if he is elected.
I would not keep Chris Wray as director of the FBI. There'd be a new one on day one. I think that's very important. In terms of an attorney general, you need someone that's got a really strong backbone. You need somebody that knows if you're going in there and you're taking care of business, the Washington Post is not going to like you. New York Times is not going to like you. You're going to get attacked by CNN, and you got to wear that as a badge of honor. You can't try to please polite society because otherwise you'll just get captured by the institution itself. And I think the DOJ and FBI have lost their way. I think that they've been weaponized against Americans who think like me and you, and I think that they become very partisan. As president, you have a responsibility to be involved in holding those agencies accountable, clearing out people who are not doing the job, and making sure that they're doing the people's business and they're not abusing their authority.
If and when the obituary for this country is written, it will include a line about the day the Department of Justice was politicized. Politics tends to ruin everything it comes in contact with, and the Department of Justice is no exception.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.